Welcome everyone to another live session. Thank you for tuning in. Oscar from StressFit. We are here today to discuss chapter 5 from this amazing book that we are slowly getting through. Vaster than sky, greater than space. What you are before you become. I really love that. What you are before you become. It's such a great meditation in itself, just that powerful insight. So today, I've just kind of scanned through chapter 5, highlighting some. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks for tuning in. Highlighting some really insightful paragraphs. And today we'll go into the paragraphs and maybe towards the end we'll do a little meditation. But before we get started, let's do 20 breaths together just to bring our attention into the present moment and just to cultivate some more inner presence before we start our session. Welcome, Tanya. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so just nice and easy, guys. We'll just go into this session by doing 20 big balloon breaths, and we'll do it from our diaphragm. So always practice breathing. Hey, Murdoch, thanks for tuning in, man. Always practice breathing through your diaphragm. You know, it kind of fascinates me how a lot of people breathe through their chest. And when you're so used to breathing through your chest, for people that are, thank you, Tanya, for people that already are breathing through their belly, it may seem like such a simple task, but to make that transition from chest breathing to belly diaphragmatic breathing can be quite challenging. So a good tip is always just to put your hands on your belly and push your abdominal region out when you breathe. Thanks, Derek, man. So just push, we really, because a lot of the stress receptors are in the chest. So when we are breathing through the chest, more likely to none, you're in a state of emergency. You don't even know it because throughout the years and months, just going through stressful experiences, your body's conditioned the respiratory system to take short, shallow breaths. And that's why we're breathing through the chest. And we're probably breathing more than 10, 15 times per minute, which is more, within the sympathetic nervous system. So just quickly, if you don't know if you're breathing from the belly, just put your hands on your belly while we do the breathing. And hey, Brooke, thanks for tuning in. Good morning, Amanpreet. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. So put your hands on your chest and we're going to do 20 big balloon breaths. And then from there, we'll just do a quick little meditation to come into the present moment, and then we will get started. So there's no real technique to it, but just big, deep breaths. We're going to breathe through the mouth, in through the mouth, and out through the mouth. Okay, it's going to look like this. I'll demonstrate by doing one. So we bring it in through the belly and all the way to the chest, and expansion. We just want to expand the whole body. And if you don't want to do it at tempo, you can just go, you can do it like that as well. Okay, so we'll start in 3. Let me just get comfortable, actually. We'll start in 3, 2, and 1. And when you finish the last breath, just take a couple of mindful moments to embrace the feeling in the body. And pause, hold the breath if you wish. And focus your attention inside your presence. Just feeling the energy inside the body. Scanning the body from head to toe. And just dropping into a state of awareness, openness, spaciousness. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Okay, just a great way to start the session. So we're on page 91, and we'll start by reading. At the start, it says, "Go all the way." Many beings with the urge for true freedom ask how to be free from the limited sense of personhood. They say, "Please help me destroy this ego that is causing me such trouble. I want to be rid of it. However, I prefer to say transcend the ego rather than destroy it. You cannot destroy a ghost, but you can realize the truth of its illusory nature, and you will no longer be intimidated by it." I really love that. You cannot destroy a ghost, because Mooji's big on going from personhood to presence. So personhood is the experience from the psychological mind. We have different levels of experience when we're in our moment. One is through the psychological mind, we experience life, and we're very much identified with objective reality. We're very much identified with, hey, Bob, thanks for tuning in, man. We're very much identified with our thoughts to the degree that it almost becomes habitual, because we've conditioned our mind for decades to identify with the streamline of thinking, that it's automatic. And this is personhood, this is the personality, this is where most of us operate from. But when we drop in to the heart sphere and we can really start to feel our presence, we go from thought identification to thought observation, from being in this psychological state to now a state of observation, where you are observing the psychological mind, you're observing the objective reality, you're observing, and in this observation, there is this state of awareness. And when you're in awareness, nothing can really affect or infiltrate your peace or presence. Only the personality or personhood, as Mooji would explain, is what gets infiltrated, what gets penetrated. The psychological mind can penetrate through, it can penetrate your being only if you're in a state of personhood. But in a state of awareness, there is only observation. To make that transition isn't one where we try and destroy the ego. You cannot destroy something that is intangible in nature. You cannot destroy a ghost. You cannot. The same way when we talk about, thoughts are like clouds. They come and go. You don't want to hold on to a cloud, because it just makes no sense to try and hold on to a cloud. You cannot. It's impossible. In the same way as when we keep these thoughts alive in our minds, it's through the attention that we are creating this entanglement and bringing this thought into our field of experience. and then we start to feel the chemistry that comes with the frequency of that thought. In the same sense, which is all coming from this egocentric state, you don't try and destroy something that is a ghost in nature. You just try and come to a level of awareness where you're observing this mechanism, so to speak. And it reminds me of an example of the wild horse. When if someone asked you to tame a wild horse running around in the field, it's quite impossible. You may try and jump on it, and the horse will fling you off, and you may try and do this or do that to try and tame the horse, but it's quite challenging. But what you can do is just let the wild horse run free, exerting all its energy, and then when it's finally exhausted, and will come a point where it's got no more energy, then you approach the horse trying to tame the horse, and your chances are going to be a lot more better taming the horse to be successful than when it's running around wild. And same way as your mind, when you're haunted and when there's so many dominating thoughts, and the mind's going crazy and the ego's playing out all these narratives, trying to resist or identify and trying to control that can be like a wild horse sometimes. It can be quite challenging, but if you just observe it and let it be, and just kind of be in a state of witnessing, it'll come a point where the thoughts will start to subside, and then you'll be able to calm your mind. That's right, Bob. Absolutely. And it is alchemy. It is chemistry. It is alchemy. It's pure alchemy when we're in this state of observation, because not only science backs it up by, that there's a term in neuroscience called metacognition, when you can become aware of your thoughts. When you become aware of your thoughts, you become aware of your thinking. In neuroscience, they call this metacognition, when you're aware of your thoughts. And this is where you can start to reprogram the mind, because when you're aware of your thoughts, then you can start to focus on thoughts that represent or that are congruent with your higher self. Hey, Sana, thanks for tuning in. But if you're not aware of your thoughts, then these narratives and this commentating and these thoughts will just play out, governing your mind, governing your moods, governing your reactions, and there's just no self-awareness. And some people live out their whole lives in this deterministic state, where it's just this reactive state of just algorithms of the mind and set of behaviors that we've learnt and memorized, and there's not really that much conscious awareness to really take control over the mind. And that can be detrimental for our self-development. So we go on to then page 92, and I'm just scanning through it. So if you do have the book in front of you, I'm not reading every single page. It'll take too long, but just reading the quotes and paragraphs that have a lot of insight. Everyone wants to be happy, but not everyone has the same idea of how to be happy. We may still feel that there are ways to be happy other than by transcending the ego. Others already know the freedom is not freedom as ego, but freedom from ego. But freedom from ego know that freedom is not freedom as ego, but freedom from ego, full stop. Many people say, I want to be free. So I say, okay, let's look at that exactly as it is. Let's look at what exactly it is that stops you from being free. But the closer they come, the more excuses they make. People seem to like the idea of being free more than actually being free. Or so they may think. That's a bit of a paradox. People seem to like the idea of being free more than actually being free. So what does that mean? It means that sometimes we get so caught up in the intellectual perspective of being free, and we get so caught up in, or we get so saturated with all this insight and information, and we're seeking more and more information, and we can explain it really well, but there's no practical experience in being free. Like I can give you a book on how to drive a car, and you can memorize that book, and you can memorize it and study it, and you can learn it word by word, and you can tell me exactly how to drive a car. But unless you jump in a car and drive it, it will never be absolute truth. It'll never be absolute knowledge. And someone may not read a book on how to drive a car, but may have just experienced driving a car, and they can explain it so much more easier and simpler because they are coming from a level of truth and they've experienced it. And it goes to, why some teachers are amazing and they're very powerful in their delivery is because they're coming from the place that they're teaching. Like Mooji, like he is teaching you from a place of presence because he's embodying it, whereas some people that may understand it really well but haven't really practiced or applied the insight may not be able to explain it as authentically. Murdoch says, I had that awareness of thoughts with a separation between it and me, was like identifying the thought as an entity, Yeah, I believe the ego is definitely an entity because when we're not aware in a state of awareness, your ego is so seductive. It is so seductive that you don't even know you're in this state of ego. It just kind of keeps you in this hypnotic state. And without, working on our self-awareness, it can really suppress your potential of experiencing the self in this lifetime. Catherine, welcome, Catherine. The mind often stops us from being free. Example, falling asleep so we don't hear key info on self-inquiry. Absolutely. I think when you threaten the ego through awareness and through coming to this beautiful state of presence, you are threatening its survival. So going to sleep is a great way for the ego or for this unconscious or this entity, if you like, metaphorically speaking, to kind of stop you from inquiring because then you're asleep and you wake up and you keep going on. I believe that when you get close to kind of unveiling the truth, there are certain tricks. The ego is so clever. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm right. The ego is so clever. It keeps you, in this state by either making you feel really tired or, making you feel this or that, or maybe manifesting some sort of, phone call or some sort of distraction. I don't know, but I always feel like there is something that always makes it a little bit challenging for you to discover that truth. It's almost like it does not want you to be present because once you're present and you found that inner presence, the ego doesn't exist. It does not exist. It cannot exist when you're in a state of presence. And problems don't exist when you're in a state of presence. There are absolutely no problems when you're present, right? The problematic mind, that we identify with only exists in this psychological state. So generally when we're either romancing the past or we're trying to formulate some future experience or creating future perspectives or forecasting future outcomes before the event is actually manifest. So when we're living in these states, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, lower vibrational feelings can start to manifest. But when we bring our attention back into the present moment, there are no problems. There is no past. There is no future. Everything kind of collapses. Everything collapses into this oneness. Resistance to freedom. Okay, so it goes on to say, as we've just been talking, interesting enough, as Catherine's mentioned, in this story on page 92, a friend of Mooji's comes in and they start talking and they get to a beautiful point of self-inquiry. And each time they go to kind of break the barriers of the ego and enter this state of presence, the man turns around and says, "Oh, do you have some water?" So Mooji goes and gets some water. Then they go back into this self-inquiry and the man turns around and says, "Oh, I need to go to the bathroom." And then he goes to the bathroom. Then he goes, "Oh, it's a little bit cold. Can you put the heater on?" So there's always something that's coming up. And then Mooji turns around and says, "Look, you don't have to be here. I won't be offended. This isn't a prison. You can leave if you want." And then he goes on saying, please forgive me. It just something's making me very uncomfortable when we start to kind of enter this state of presence. And then he insists to try again and try again until they find this really beautiful state of presence through self-inquiry. And again, it goes back to what we've just been talking about, that there is maybe this unconscious state or these unconscious patterns, maybe even a energetic parasite, who knows, that kind of creates this resistance from finding that sweet spot of presence. It's like it doesn't want you to find that sweet spot of presence, because when it does, again, this is your full potential. If everyone could kind of click their fingers and find this level of presence, then I think a lot of these dark forces would not have a job. So there is some level of obstacle there for sure. Something inside of us has invested considerable energy into untruth. It is indeed easy to say, I'm searching for truth. But when we come right up to the moment of truth, that's when I'm likely to hear, just one moment. I'll be back in 10 minutes, okay? Hold on. Don't go away. I'm coming. Such a one will not be coming back. Not in 10 minutes, not in 10 hours, not in 10 days, and maybe not for even 10 years, if at all, because something inside of them is afraid to face the real. It is so easy to say, I want truth, but rare are they who abandon themselves to seek the truth for the sake of truth. So, from a different perspective, maybe it's fear. Maybe it's fear that's holding us back from discovering the truth, because they say the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. But are we ready for this freedom? Because this means the death of the ego, the death of the personality, the death of everything you have known, that everything you have identified with, that has given you this projection of self. All that has to come to an end. The old self has to dissolve. It is the dark night of the soul, right? And on the other side is the unknown, and that can be uncomfortable. That can be that can be unfamiliar, and that is ultimately it is the death of the ego. And when you're so identified with your roles, and you're so identified with your body, you're so identified with your narrative, you're so identified with your personal history and everything in your life and all your objects, and this is how you formulate who you think you are, this projection of self. And this is who I am my roles, I am my acts of services, I am this, I am that. And then the truth contradicts everything you think you are, because it is so powerful and so immense that when you truly discover the truth, all of that just dissolves away, and you find this oneness within yourself that is consciousness. That can be scary. That can be fearful, and there can be a lot of resistance to that, because maybe I'm not ready to let go of Oscar, because the truth means that Oscar is just an avatar, just a personality. He only is unique to this lifetime, and only when I'm in this physical experience called life. But the truth is, I will drop this avatar like I change my clothes. It has no true purpose in the evolution, or the evolution of my soul. And that can be scary. It definitely can. So I do understand that. Alpha says it means we have to admit we have to change, and change is scarier. Uncertainty of what we might discover on the other side of fear. Absolutely. Alpha, very beautifully said. Gail says sounds like cognitive dissonance, coming face to face with the truth that challenges your current reality. Yes, great word, cognitive dissonance. That's true. It's the confliction of the old self and new self. So when that happens, it is confronting. It's almost like, for anyone that's taken any sort of psychedelic or ayahuasca and has been so plugged into reality and believes reality is a certain way, when you do ayahuasca, that will just dissolve every single perception you have of reality into oblivion. Right? It'll just dissolve it. Doesn't matter how you think reality is, it'll just take you to another place, and just absolutely mind-blowing experience. But if you're not open to that, and that's why you have to be ready for it, they say, then that can be quite scary. That can be quite scary. and maybe scary is not the word. There can be a lot of resistance. So resistance to freedom. Like, we want to be free, but are we ready to be free? Are we ready to be free? Are we ready to let go of everything that is physical? Everything that you know. Are you ready to truly let go and come to peace that it's only temporary? This life is only temporary. It's just one big sensations, and the more you cling and attach to people and objects, the more your heart will have to uncling and detach from people and objects. That's why attachment can create suffering. That's not to say you can't enjoy your life. You can enjoy your life more from a level of non-attachment, because you realize the truth, which is that everything is in this beautiful transient flow, and you don't own anything. You don't own anything. Ownership is an illusion. So everything has to be expressed in this moment to then allow the natural flow of life to move through you without resistance or identification. And then you are more free to love wholeheartedly, because you're not trying to control outcomes, hold on, attach, and you know, create this physical experience when you're a spiritual being. And knowing the transience of everything and the impermanence of life should give you the motivation to always express your truth, because every moment now becomes sacred. And when the moment is sacred, when each interaction is sacred, then you show up with the best version of yourself, because you know that this moment is unique. In this moment, like that, you're not going to get this moment again. So showing up as your best and giving your best and bringing, all that good energy and all your good vibes, and just letting your light shine, that's what it's going to give you. Understanding the illusion of attachment, it's going to give you the freedom to always show up as your best. And if you can't, then you just try. And that's the beauty of it, is knowing how fragile life is. And when we truly understand that, then I think there's a deeper beauty to embrace, because it's so easy to live in these bubbles where we get so identified with our roles in life, and we believe we're invincible and we're going to live forever until life passes you by, and you look back at it and think, did I really live? Did I really live? Or was I just going through the motions and always worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, and worried about the way I look, and worried about making money, and worried about this and worried about that? And you just let the fear consume your being. And that can be a reality for some of us. We succumb to fear because we're scared of the light. We're scared of the truth. The truth will set you free. The true seeker must inquire into the attitudes that underlie the motive that underlie and motivate their approach to life and to the very search for truth. Seize your chance, which is always now. Some say that inquiring into the nature of the self is hard, but that's not true. The truth is that there is a part of the psychological mind that is reluctant to partake in any investigation that may expose its ultimate non existence. This is exactly what we've been talking about. There is a part of the psychological mind that is reluctant to partake in any investigation that may expose its ultimate non existence. Immerse yourself in the energy field of satsang, whereby you become more aware of the greater power that rests in and as being itself. Fear may keep popping up, but you no longer surrender to the fear. Awareness of this natural space of being makes it easier to get over the fascination with the ego. You are now able to turn your attention away from the ego and hold it inside presence itself. When attention doesn't feed the ego doesn't have the power. The ego's power starts to diminish, its authority broken. But if the old fascination with the transient is constantly lurking at the periphery of your attention, it's because you still have at least a little emotional investment in it. It keeps sitting at the door, waiting and whining, because it knows that eventually it is going to get fed. This can be a slow process, because being with your ego is like being in a bad relationship. We want to say, I'm finished with you. Hit the road, Jack. But then we go off and start to think about it. Maybe I was a little bit hasty. So you send a little text to the ego. Okay, let's make another go of it. Some people can break up with the ego easily. Others cannot. Because we are not quite sure yet that we are what we are really if we're doing the right thing, do I really need to let go of the attachment of my mind completely? But as you discover your own true self that is imbued with love, it may be easy to let go of what is not true. It is not even that you have to drop vain. It is not even that you have to drop vain pursuits. God is not asking you to give your sweetie. God is not asking you to give up your sweets, your favorite treats. It's just that when you start to lose interest in them, at some point it'll even dawn on you that these sweets you thought you had to surrender to, you actually never had. It's all an illusion. They were just false promises of the mind of something to gain in the future so they could make you happy and content. And isn't that the truth? The future is going to make us happy. You know, this is such an illusion, such a trap of the mind when we believe that tomorrow is going to make us happy. Next week's going to make us happy. When I get this, I'm going to be happy. When I get my house, I'm going to be happy. When I pay off my mortgage, when I get this relationship, when I go on this holiday, when I have this level of freedom. And again, tomorrow is an illusion because we only have this moment stretched out into infinity. It's always the one moment that everything is manifested in. So true freedom comes now. In this moment, we can be free. And we be free by understanding and realizing the nature of the mind. But more importantly, understanding is on a level of intellect. It is the experience by being aware and observing the activity of the mind, right? Because when you start to observe, you're the consciousness, you're the conscious observer, becoming aware of the programs, the propensities, the impulses, the feelings, the emotions. It all just manifests as phenomena in your field of awareness. But in that field of awareness, there is no identity. You go from being something, to no thing. So you go from being in objective reality to then becoming the subject, observing objective reality. And if you stay there for long enough, then you become everything because you understand the dualistic nature of life and everything collapses into this oneness. So you go from being something to no thing to everything, right? Because once you are in this state of samadhi, so, as the yogis explain, where subject and object become one, then you are everything. You are consciousness itself, and consciousness is the true essence of life, and it's something we cannot measure, but it is within each and every one of us. We don't understand it because we don't have the capacity through the human mind to understand it, but it's something we can feel on an innate level that animates our body, that animates our being. It is the energy, it is the divinity within each and every person. Beyond opening and closing, so we'll move on to page 96. When the person is on its way out, there comes a time when it is recognized that the personal sense is appearing in presence, but the presence is greater. The sense of the individual person is still there, but it's on its way out. It's like a snake that is leaving the room. His head is in the garden, but his tail is still inside the room. Let him go out. He's leaving anyway. Keep your energy and your concentration focused only on the self, not the personality. So, what is the difference between the personality and self? What is the difference between the personality and self? Question, guys. Let me know your answer. If you were the personal sense, you would not be able to witness the sense of personhood and its antics. The sense of personhood is unstable and inconsistent, but it is trying to find consistency. It is the one reporting on the comings and goings, but the paradox is that the one who is striving for consistency is itself inconsistent. If you want to find consistency, personhood has to go. Only then there is a true consistency revealed. That is the trick somehow. Murdoch says personality is what you create. Self is your true self. Very good answer. Gail says personality is what has been created. Absolutely. Lena says the character you play every day and the true soul. Yes, another very powerful answer. That's true. Very, very true. You know, the personality is the projection. It is the dance of life, but the self is the projector, right? The projection needs the projector. You know, without the projector, there is no projection. You know, but when we are so identified with the projection, the dance of life, the phenomena in the objective world, we limit our consciousness to what we are identified with, and it is this three-dimensional experience of life. But really, you know, the power is in the consciousness, which is allowing, you know, this, which is allowing this dance to take place, because it is the space. Without the space, there is no stage for the personality to dance. There is no stage. There cannot be a stage. It's the space that allows everything to manifest in, and the self is the stage. So when you connect with the self, then there is no identification with the personality. So Oscar does not exist anymore. Oscar is just another phenomena in this experience, and it's so powerful. You know, it's so powerful that we are the universe becoming aware of itself through a dance called life, right? We're here, and we learn, and we experience, and we build all these concepts, and then we start to formulate this projection of who we think we are, and we are so identified with our roles, and the level of, you know, the level of seduction is so powerful that it can keep us in this state, in this very limiting state for our whole lives. And I think that's the way it's been designed, because it's more, I guess it's more valuable that way, to then discover your true essence, because you've been caught up in this dance of life for so long, that when you do discover your true essence, it's a relief, it's a liberation. Because if you truly all really knew that from the start, I don't think life would be as fun, right? It wouldn't be as fun, because you're kind of already in this state of presence, and everything's kind of, I mean, I think it's fun to a certain degree to be caught up, and you know, to live life through the personality. You know, you can use it to your advantage. You know, just because being self-aware doesn't mean you can't have fun with the personality. I think for me, I can only speak for myself. I think, you know, transitioning between both personality and self, it works well for me, because I like being the personality at times, you know, but when it becomes a little bit too haunting, and I start to drown myself in lower vibrational energies, then the self needs to come in and remind the personality that hey, this is just a ride. You know, don't take it too seriously. It's okay. Just breathe it out. Everything's temporary. You know, so having the ability to kind of navigate through both experiences, um, works for me, you know, for now. But I think there'll come a stage where I'll probably be just more in presence than personality. But, you know, it's the evolution of oneself. We identify as the person who is going to receive something beautiful. But the beautiful is already here. It's just that the person is hiding it. This mystery is now revealed to you. So don't pay so much attention to identity. The more attention you give it, the more real it seems. Know that it is only you who gives reality to these occurrences, and have no reality in themselves. This is why the mind needs your investment of energy and belief. Otherwise, it cannot become manifest any more than a light bulb can glow without electricity. Through your attention, identity, interest, and belief, you supply the electricity that energizes thoughts. Once you see this, you will recognize where the real power lies. The power is always with you, not with the thought. For as long as this is unclear to you, thoughts will seem to have a life of their own. Gail says, I've noticed that I would become completely disconnected with myself and realize that I can come back and disappear at the same time. We have everything already that we need. Absolutely. And I think that's when you can feel complete, independent to your circumstance or your environment. If you can close your eyes and connect with source, the absolute, and feel fulfilled and content and really raise your vibration and encompass yourself in this beautiful light that you are, I think that's one of the most powerful experiences you can have as a being of light. Is independent to your environment. You can go within and you can just start to feel the beauty that already is, the completeness and connection that you already are. Like enlightenment is a trap. It's not something we seek, because if you're seeking enlightenment, it's the ego that is seeking enlightenment, right? Because it's not something you grasp and say, hey, I'm enlightened, because the whole seeking itself is coming from a very unstable place. Enlightenment is your nature. It is already within you. It's something you expose your attention to. It's a frequency that is inside you already. So you don't need to grasp it and you don't need to achieve it. And it goes back to the teachings of the Tao Te Ching. As soon as you stop trying to be accepted, you are accepted. And it's a paradox. As soon as you stop trying to reach it, you feel it. You know, um, as soon as you stop trying to find it, it finds you. And this is what dropping into the Tao is, and falling into emptiness is that it's already here. It's already here within you, and it's just camouflaged really well through so many different layers of maybe emotions, feelings, and the gatekeeper, your ego, that makes it really difficult for you to enter this inner sanctuary of self. But with enough presence, practice, presence, and awareness, the light of the self will start to shine. And when you start to really immerse your attention in this awareness, something beautiful starts to happen, because your inner world becomes more real than your outer world. And when that happens, then all these problems aren't so problematic anymore. You can just shake them off. Your intuitive nature becomes so strong, and your ability to pierce through the equations of life becomes very sharp, because you're not sitting there dwelling on these equations that would sometimes take so much of your attention, because you realize the power of the self. You realize the power of the self. Murdoch says, what you just said, Oscar, about enlightenment and the ego, very powerful. Thanks, Murdoch, man. Thank you. Um, and it's same with presence. Presence isn't something we achieve. Presence is something we expose our attention to. Because it's already within us. And same with love. True love is already there. It's a frequency. It's a river of energy that we tap into, that we can express to the world. You know, so when you're in a relationship, and I believe, going off topic here, I believe, especially in relationships, because they can be really, really powerful in your own self development and awareness, because your partner can expose you to parts of yourself where you realize you're not extraordinary, so to speak. There's an ego love where it's a very biochemical love. I miss you can maybe be the withdrawal of a chemical reaction that the person is giving you, because that other the person in the relationship you're with, they give you a chemical hormonal rush. So when you start to miss that hormonal rush, that can be, I miss you. It could be just a chemical reaction that you're missing, and you can't claim to love someone 1 minute and then verbally start to attack them the next minute. um, so I think that The difference between ego love and heartfelt love is that one is conditioned and one is unconditional, right? Unconditional love, you can't, with unconditional comes forgiveness, compassion, all these beautiful, higher, euphoric energies start to move through your body, and it's something that is eternal. It's something that is the light of the universe, and it's not something you can fabricate. It's something that is already there, and when we can tap into it, we can really express that through our being, and it's such a beautiful love that is within all of us that we can express with one another, and it's not conditioned. It's not conditioned. It has no conditions. And it's a difference between, I guess, loving, being in love with a person and then loving a child, or your daughter or son. There's a different level of love with your mother. There's different expressions of love, but I think true love is a frequency that is within all of us that we can tap into if we are open enough. Thoughts don't necessarily mean thinking. For a while, thoughts may continue to appear, but the arising of thought does not in itself amount to thinking. A thought without belief has no power, but a thought with belief can start a war or begin to heal the pain of an entire nation. If it is your belief in thoughts and your identification with them that breathes life into them and can create and cause great pain and suffering. Much like actors in a play won't come on stage until the audience is seated, thoughts won't perform without you, the perceiver of them. Thoughts cannot think themselves because thoughts are not sentient. Therefore, they cannot by themselves turn into thinking. For thinking to occur, thoughts need to link up with the thinker thought, the I, that is interested in the play and its outcome. The same thought that troubles you may rise in another and pass by barely noticed. No thought has the inherent meaning or power. It is you, through conditioning, habit, belief, and identification, who gives meaning to a particular thought. Once you have become identified with the thought, you are seemingly pulled into thinking. The watcher of that thought play somehow also becomes a part of the play. However, that which knows all of this is not caught in the bubble of that play. In and as such a wider field of awareness, we are able to see even the attention being pulled into identifying with thoughts. Stay in the space of neutrality. Neutrality. It is a natural, neutral place of witnessing this is the real self. You know, so many, I hear so often that my thoughts are very excessive. My thoughts are very dominating. I can't stop thinking. I wake up in the middle of the night and I start thinking and I can't sleep. Thought, yeah, thoughts are such a fascinating subject. Like you can't scan someone's brain and go, okay, that's where a thought is. No one really knows where a thought appears from. It's a very ethereal phenomena that manifests into our field of experience, to our field of awareness. Now, you guys have heard me say before, one of my favorite concepts is that thoughts are like clouds, they come and go. But clouds cannot exist independently without the great blue sky. But the great blue sky can exist independently without the clouds. Are you the clouds or are you the great blue sky? So are you the thoughts or are you the awareness? When you haven't truly adopted and realized that your true self, your natural self, your timeless being is awareness, if you haven't truly felt that, if it's only become pseudoscience for you, if it's only become like a perspective in your intellect, then thoughts may haunt you, thoughts may dominate you, thoughts may really, have the power to suck your attention into this influx of thought process. But when you truly know your power as awareness, the great blue sky, then you look at thoughts, you don't want to hold on to a cloud. There's no point. Thoughts can only audition for your attention. You grant the visa for thoughts. You're the employer. You employ thoughts. The thoughts that are housing in your mind are because you've granted them tenancy. And that's a hard one to swallow because it's so unconscious that our attention is, always being pulled. The gravitational pull from the mind can be so strong because we built up this momentum through decades of thinking that it's become habitual and so conditioned that we don't even have to think anymore because our attention is just taken. It's taken because the ego needs your attention to fuel its survival. It needs your attention. So that is the game. Your attention is so powerful. How powerful is attention? If you don't give a baby attention, I think there was this one study that I read from Bruce Lipton that within World War II in an orphanage, you know, 90% or a large percentage of the babies that weren't given attention died. And the babies that were given attention survived. And I do believe that. I don't know how true it is, but the point is that attention is probably one of the most powerful things in life. Like even now, I'm honored to have your guys' attention. It is the attention that's allowing me to be a conduit of this information that I'm presenting. Everything is attention. It is more valuable than money. If you don't give any of these, personalities or celebrities attention, they don't have the stage that they have. It's the attention that we give them. Attention is one of the most powerful currencies in the world, and your ego loves attention. It loves your attention. And what is attention? In psychology, they've got a whole chapter on it. Attention. Attention is a streamline of your consciousness. It is a spotlight that you can shine wherever you want, and it lights up that area, and then you suck that information in. But it has to be channeled because there's only a streamline of it. We can only process 2 million bits of information depending on where our attention is consciously, but the subconscious mind can process billions of amount of information, but it's your attention. When you don't have the maturity or your attention is immature, it's got nothing to do with age. Your mind will take it. Your ego will take it and it will keep you caught up in this influx of thought process. And when you're caught up in this influx of thought process, it's a lot of energy that is wasted, right? Your energy is being wasted in thinking. Because if you bring your attention in the body and you started to cultivate a different level of experience, then where does all this energy go? It's not here anymore, feeding your thoughts. It starts to awaken different centers in the body, and this is where we start to awaken our kundalini and all these different, ancient teachings that teach about awakening and different, mystical energies awakening the body. It all comes through the channeling your attention into the body. Eckhart Tolle's teachings, if you study Eckhart Tolle, the main teaching is to bring your attention into the body to feel the underlying dimension of presence that is already within you. And it's done through attention. Flooding attention into the body starts to expand your consciousness, starts to flood the body full of consciousness. It is your attention. So if you are not aware of your attention, then your mind has this gravitational pull and it just takes it. But when you start to catch it, boom, this is meditation. This is the tug of war, bringing your attention back into the body. And that's all you really have to do. It's not, it's so simple. It's so complex is that there's this, it's almost like a battle between the ego trying to take your attention because it's been captivating you for decades or however long, and then bringing your attention to this natural state of presence, which is your birthright, which is you observe any baby, that's an infant. They're just in this state of presence. That's all they are. They just enjoy in this state of presence. So when you bring your attention back into the body and you just start to feel, you're flooding your body full of attention and your consciousness is starting to rise, right? Your mana, your spiritual strength is starting to strengthen. And then you're starting to activate different centers in your body and your thoughts start to subside. And then in neuroscience, we call, there's a term called the default mode networks, which basically means that all the networks in your brain that are responsible for chit chatter, they start to quieten, and then neurons that don't fire together don't wire together. So your brain starts to prune away all these useless connections of thinking that no longer serve you, because where your attention goes, energy flows. So now you're not paying attention to all these neural networks that are, kind of responsible, all these chit chatter that no longer serve you any purpose because you're trying to connect to your full potential or your higher self, and you don't need all this junk that you've acquired over time. And all these amazing things happen just by learning how to channel your attention. It's mind blowing. It's so simple, but it's so complex because it's so simple. You know what I mean? It's so complex, so it's so simple. So a very, very important one to highlight is pay attention. And we haven't been taught to pay attention. Like when in school, were you taught to focus and concentrate your attention on something? You know, apart from well, let me rephrase that. When have you been taught to focus your attention in the body? Right? Because our attention is always outside of ourselves. It's in attention. It's in the objective reality, which you may be really good at, paying attention to everything outside of yourself. But when are you taught to bring your attention back in and just focus your attention in your body and start to feel the animation, start to feel the essence, start to feel the vibration, start to feel everything that's happening in your body? That is probably one of the most powerful meditations. So potent, right? Because if you can keep your attention there and you watch how long you can keep it there before the ego comes and starts to distract you. Boom. But as soon as you can catch the feedback loops, because these are all neural networks that have kept you in this unconscious state through thinking and feeling, you start to put a brake on these automatic programs by now becoming the conscious observer. And the more you do this, the more you start to stop these feedback loops and you start to reprogram a new state of mind, a new state of experience. And it's just through channeling your attention, raising your awareness, and starting to really introspect and becoming aware of the programs that govern your mind, your behaviors, your attitudes, your perceptions, and just observing them. You don't have to change them, just observe them. Because through observation, a natural phenomena, a natural transformation will begin, where it is the metamorphosis from going from a very physical experience to a very metaphysical experience. Okay, so if I were to urge you to stop your thoughts, could you accomplish such a feat? It would be like swatting flies outdoors. The more you go after them, the more they seem to appear. We cannot place memories, worries, and other thoughts under arrest. So let the thought flies buzz, but shift your attention towards awareness itself. Just let the thoughts play and you stay as awareness. Compulsive thought activity will naturally begin to subside without effort. In a sense, you are no longer feeding the animals, and so they soon disappear. Don't get entangled in the mind's thicket. Giving energy to the mind is like asking someone to harass you. Once you see it, the game is up. However, the psychological mind, the devious mind, the mind in its aspect of deceiver and tempter, speaks with the serpent's voice. It will still try to find ways to work through your weakness and so gain entry to your house. It will sneak in through your blind spots, but you are stronger, infinitely greater than the lie. And all the lies flee in the face of truth. Now you have asked for the veil of delusion to be lifted, so be it. Initially, the more you re enter your space of freedom, the more the seeds of your mind may grow into aggressive weeds that are demanding, almost commanding attention. Although the mind's whole show is only a passing phenomenon, you may feel that these special effects are real, even if they are merely the thousands of repetitions of old psychological material. The ways of the mind are ancient, but the self is timeless. The self is timeless. Freedom is free, but not cheap. Page 102. When you sense that you have had a chance to merge the mind deep into its own source, then you can feel the presence of the Supreme Being in your heart. That isn't the time to go to the cafe or hang out on the internet. Go home and sit in this oneness. Say yes to the truth inside your heart. Take the attitude. Rid me of the ego and dissolve my mind in you, the divine presence. Replace me with you. I say yes, yes, yes to the truth. When you have just made such a breakthrough into real seeing, but then interact in ways that reflect your own habitual egoic thinking, thereby squandering your treasure, it might just be that you still haven't recognized the value of what you have discovered. So basically, when we have a revelation, and it can happen at any moment, when we just feel, and I think in Zen they call it Satori. Eckhart Tolle's mentioned this a few times in his talks. Satori basically means a glimpse into the present moment, and when you are so present, and everything just dissolves, and there's just this natural joyfulness just moving through the body. That is such a, and we've all experienced it, and we experience it from time to time. And sometimes when we meditate, we do breath work, we're experiencing this state. Cherish that state, really remember that state, really value that state, and then make that a goal of yours to come back to that state. Really try and cultivate that state, because the more you can cultivate it, the more habitual it'll become for you to enter that state. And it's an art. It's a skill that we learn, and we can become really good at it. We can become really good at it, which is to enter this state of presence. It's something we can develop. And it's like going from the beta. So there are different states in the brain. The wakeful, noisy state is a beta state. And when we drop down when we drop down into a more relaxed state, it's an alpha state. But some people can naturally do this really well. The alpha state is like the zone for artists that can really focus in what they're doing and create these amazing things, or do amazing things on the field or whatever they're participating in. An alpha state is a more creative state, but the beta state it's a very noisy, wakeful, chit chatter state. But when you practice how to go from beta to alpha, it's something that you can really become really good at. And breath work, like that's why we did the 20 breaths at the start. I believe for me, breath work is what catapults me into an alpha state. And that's why it's so powerful to implement some level of breath work into your practice, because on a neurological level, it strengthens the connection between the frontal lobe and the limbic brain, right? So the frontal lobe is the seat of your awareness, and it's a more executive region in the brain. And the limbic brain is the emotional brain. So when we do breath work and it starts to strengthen this connection, we can become more control over. We have more control over our emotions. We have more composure, and with that, it gives us more awareness to kind of drop into these states without becoming so emotionally overwhelmed through certain feelings or whatnot. So then page 10345 goes into this little story, which I'm not going to go into. Page 106, the ultimate truth is not an experience. Spiritual seekers often ask me to comment on blissful, cathartic, or other impactful experiences they have had since dedicating themselves to the truth. They ask me to help them clarify what the real significance of such experiences might be. Perhaps for some days or weeks, they have been moving to a deep sense of oneness with everything, and now they wish to know if that means that they have got it, and now they want to share their discovery with others. Also, as people go more deeply into their self-inquiry or along their spiritual paths, some gifts and talents may manifest or become more pronounced. For example, you hug someone and they all of a sudden they say, "Thank you for healing my shoulder." And you start to think, wow, I am blessed with the gift of healing hands. I am meant to become a healer. Or perhaps you suddenly find that you can sing like an angel. And then there is a temptation to make much of this. But if this happens, you just have to remember that your choice was for freedom. It is not to become a famous singer. Of course, if you sing, by all means sing, but sing just for the joy of it. Then if more comes of it, then that's fine. Just don't place your singing career in front of consciousness. Whatever you are experiencing, no matter how beautiful or profound, it is still phenomenal. It is not uncommon that many beautiful things may happen to you as you become empty of a sense of personal identity. But it's not like a bag of tricks or passing series of milestones. When such things arise, you must remind yourself, I didn't embark on a spiritual path to develop special qualities. I'm going for freedom. Go all the way, don't settle for anything else. Meaning that I do believe that when we start to really discover true presence and start to cultivate this state, many talents and many new motivations and many more inspiration and ambitions will start to surface in your field of experience, and you may now want to pursue writing, you may want to pursue this, and you may want to become a teacher, and you may want to become an artist, and and start to learn an instrument. Follow your heart, absolutely follow your heart, explore different motivations and ambitions, but always stay true to the presence that you have discovered. That should be the goal, and everything else is just an expression of that. And what Mooji is trying to say is, don't be distracted from the talents or from the new you know ambitions that you may acquire through finding this level of presence. Stay true to what is the foundation of all new expressions and phenomena. All right, guys, we're at our last section, temptation of a great yogini. A great yogini was meditating in a mountain cave, intent upon discovering her true nature. While in deep contemplation, suddenly the most beautiful colors appeared in front of her. The colors were shimmering and far more vivid than any artist could ever paint. No flowers on earth could be so delicate, detailed, and radiant as these living, changing shapes. She felt this extraordinary, amazing, and so beautiful. She felt this is extraordinary, amazing, and so beautiful. But then an inner voice came. This can't be what I am, because I am here perceiving these colors. And then the colorful shapes quickly danced away and disappeared. After a short while, she heard the most beautiful music, so soulful and rhythmic, absolutely delightful. Who had composed this? She was deeply moved. No composer on earth could have composed this. But then a deeper awareness reminded her, it may be beautiful, but it cannot be what I am, because I am here to hear it. And then the music faded. Next, luminous heavenly beings appeared and came floating towards her to embrace her. She felt warmth. She felt their divinity and their innocence. And then she realized these beings may be celestial, but they cannot be my goal, because I am here to see them. And so they vanished, and finally her mind became totally absorbed in her heart. In the process of discovering one's true nature, one may indeed experience many beautiful states brought on by a growing sense of oneness and wonder. We may have some true experiences which are necessary for the consciousness at that time. But the ultimate truth is not an experience. We should be careful about coming to premature conclusions, for the mind loves to claim, this is it, I've done it, hallelujah. The mind would love you to run and tell your friends. Then, should the experience pass, which is inevitable in the realm of experience, the realm of time and change, the time will try to use this as proof that you still have a long way to go on your spiritual journey. Something deeper knows that this is just another voice. Both the one claiming the experience and the one interpreting is are not real. This understanding is grounded in a deeper awareness that wants nothing at all. The sense of arrival based on a set of sensations is still the person. It is ever trying to get to the truth and gets carried away in the idea of, wow, look what just happened. That is so beautiful. It must mean that I have arrived. You may be grateful for a beautiful states that arise in the insights they offer, but don't become attached to anything that comes and goes. And don't let don't let any object distract you from the understanding that you are the subject in which even these beautiful states arise. The self is not a state. I may sometimes refer to it as a state, less state of feeling, but it is infinitely broader than any state or feeling. It is a common misconception to take a particular feeling to be the truth. If the truth were a state, or if it required one to feel a certain way, this would be to limit the limitless. People often ask me how they become so stabilized in the self. Just be. Don't think about how you can become this, for it is not attained by the use of any technique. It is recognized. It is the recognition of what is timely present. You are already here. And that completes chapter 5. Great session, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Just love exploring the teachings of Mooji. I just feel like each time we do these sessions, there's just the insights are just more enriched within my own being, and it's just such a, I think we're so lucky to have such a powerful being in this lifetime to teach us, these authentic insights, and it's something that I really embrace and really value. So to share it with you guys is always a very powerful session. So I thank you for everyone for tuning in. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Murdoch. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Alpha. And we'll be back next week to do chapter 6. And this session is recorded, so you can just go into our about section for anyone that wants to watch it again. It'll be in our link tree. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope everyone had a lovely weekend. And until next time, Oscar from StressFit, I will see you guys in the next live. Thanks for tuning in.